are here to help. We do not forgive, we do not forget, but we are here to help those who have been hurt. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce the former head of Narconon in the Northeast U.S., Patty.
Okay, sorry. You have no idea how great it is for you to come out here and speak out against the cult. This is the very last thing they want to see is young people just coming out and exposing them because they believe that education is a hate crime, and we know that it's not. And you are educating people about the cult, what they're all about, and you guys just rock, and I just really appreciate it. Yeah. My name is Patty Pieniadz. I got into Scientology through the cult's front group called Narconon. That was in 1973. There was no internet back then. There was very...
What? You're kidding! What? No, it's true.
And,
really?
There was no information about them. It was very secretive. Okay, we're going to try something with the microphone. Hold on. All right, how's this?
Exactly the same. No worries, keep talking.
All right, can you hear me? I'm going to talk loud?
Yeah.
All right. Back in '73, I joined Narconon. I was recruited into the cult of Scientology. From their drug program, they have several different front groups, Narconon being one of their biggest.
The microphone is haunted by alien ghosts.
One of us should get up there and fix it.
Their biggest, and it still is, their biggest recruitment drive. They get a lot of people, they go after people who are in bad shape, people who are in depression, people who are just, their lives are screwed up on drugs. And what they're doing is they're using them in this bad state to actually recruit them into the church. Once in the church, when I got into the church, I ended up working for the Guardian's office, which is now called the Office of Special Affairs, or OSA. And I worked for the Guardian's office for 3 years, controlling the Narconons and the education groups here in the New England area. After I left there. Well, let me just tell you about Scientology and how it sucks you in. What happens, especially for somebody like me, being 18 years old, being in bad shape, I had just started shooting heroin, actually, when I found Narconon. And when you first go in, the communication courses and the beginning courses, they seem so great, they seem so helpful. And you start thinking, wow, this stuff is really nice, it actually is, it works. And slowly but surely, you become indoctrinated into Scientology thinking. And you start putting these filters on where you start thinking the way Hubbard tells you to think, rather than using any sort of critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is actually a bad thing in Scientology. They don't want you looking at things critically. They want you to adopt Hubbard's philosophy 100%, no changing anything around, just stick with it. So I did that. I worked for the Guardian's office. After I left there, I worked for the Office of Special Affairs for 14 years, and I was one of the bad guys. I was one of the people that investigated critics for the church. I went after them with covert and overt intelligence that I was taught by the church, stealing trash, looking up people's records, their criminal records, their court records, with the idea to silence them. That's what Scientology wants to do. That's why they want to know who Anonymous is and who's behind you. They want to silence you. And they do that by finding out maybe something in your past that you don't want known. Maybe some connection. Maybe your parents or a relative doesn't want you involved in this, or your wife, and they'd stop you from coming here if they knew. And Scientology uses that information to silence critics. And I did that For 14 years, I worked with the Office of Special Affairs. In 2000, I got a computer. And Scientology does not want you're allowed to have a computer if you're a public person, but they don't want you looking at anything critical on the internet. They tell you that it's lies, that it's not good for you, that you won't continue up the bridge if you do this. Well, I went anyway.
Yeah.
And I started reading about what was going on at international management, what was going on from people who had left the cult and the stories they were telling. And it started to make sense, and the brainwash started falling off, and I started actually being able to look. And two major things happened. People say, what happened that finally made you leave? Two things. The first is I was in a used bookstore. I was browsing around and I was looking for something to give my sister who was having trouble with her marriage. And I picked up a book and then I put it back down because I realized that if I gave my sister this book, I would be in trouble with the church, because the only advice I could give my sister as a good Scientologist was more Scientology. If I gave them a book written by a person who was involved with relationships and relationship counseling, that would be considered an enemy or doing something enemy of the church. So I put the book down and I thought to myself, when did I become afraid of this church? Why? Because my dad always said, you know, you don't write in books, you don't burn books. Books will educate people. Books will enlighten people. You never do that. And so here I am in this bookstore, putting a book down because I'm afraid that my church will punish me for buying the book. And the next thing that happened was the same sister, she wanted me to build a website with her and sell some stuff. And because it wasn't Scientology related, I told her I couldn't do it because the church would get mad at me. And she said, why would the church do that? Like, what's wrong? And again, the crack in the wall, if you will, of Scientology's thinking. Wow, she's right, why can't I do this? And that's when I actually hit the internet and started reading about it. And about a few years after I read about Scientology, I started posting anonymously through emailers as Carrot Wing. And I started telling what was going on inside the church. I started attending church events and reporting on it. And the church was looking for me. They were trying to figure out who I was. They actually sent somebody in to befriend me and find out who I was. And then that person told the church. A couple of days after that happened, the church sent my best friend, a woman who's from Boston here. She came to my home and she basically told me that if I didn't shut up and stop posting to the internet, that she was going to apply the fair game policy of the church against me and do whatever it took to silence me. And I told her to basically bring it on.
Yeah!